It's interesting that you mentioned being really well-rounded, and one of the core components of rapping, essentially, is flows.
Word.
And I actually wanted to ask you a question specifically about your flows, and you can hear it on a lot of your songs, but the most recent one, Sumner, your flows are all over the place. Like, you can't predict how you're going to say what you're going to say. Is that something that you consciously did, or is that just how you naturally rap?
Well, for that song, it's a lot of, like, just trial and error. And then little by little, you just kind of start realizing, okay, how do I want to sound? What do I want it to feel? And what do I want it to feel like? And I think that kind of directed the flows more so. Like in the first verse, it's kind of a little more all in the same pocket, and then the hook is a little more flowy, and the energy changes, and I think the energy changes and the flows change to exemplify some kind of dynamic as far as like the subject matter that it is that I'm talking about. Whereas opposed, like the first verse is a little more like, you know, this is what's going on right now to change my perspective, and then the second is much more like energy and me talking with someone, and the hooks are just kind of like, this is where I am now, what I'm seeing, and then like the outro bridge is just like on some like chant shit, you know what I'm saying? But I feel like all of them are all speaking. It's like a round table, all pitching in their idea of what it means to, you know, upgrade your perspective.
I'm glad that you mentioned the hooks, though, because I feel like for a lot of younger artists, doing hooks is something that's very difficult.
Word.
It's not something that it does, a lot of times it won't sound natural.
Right.
Well, it's like
Is
delicate.
that something that you had? Yeah, delicate's a good way of putting it. Is that something that you had to work on?
Yeah, for sure. My hooks used to be trash. You know, I used to because the problem is when you care about your words, you start thinking that the hook has to be just as lyrical as the verses. And I think a lot of the times artists have like that trouble where it's like, damn, am I sacrificing my lyricism for 30 seconds and now the world is going to shame me? And it's like, no, you know, a hook has to be a vibe, and a hook has to have, even if you don't know what the fuck the words are, even if you, like, even if you're just doing that, you captured something, you know, and if you're able to say something within that, then so be it. But if a lot of people say it, and a lot of the times, you like the older generation, you know, if the hook is whack, then the song is trash.
Oh,
you know
for
what
sure.
I'm saying?
I mean, the hook's like some of the most memorable part of the actual song.
Right. It's like, even if it's just a funny line, if it's just
sure.
an interesting placement of a word, if it's just a flow,
It's gonna stick in your mind.
it has to stick in your mind. That's why it's called the hook. It hooks everything else in. You know what I mean?
And,
So
you know, it has to
it
catch you,
definitely took a minute as a songwriter to try to understand my pocket of how I want my hooks to sound, because you don't want to degrade yourself either. You know what I'm
Do you
saying?
feel like you're totally in that pocket now? Or are you
I'm
still
getting way
working on
better.
it?
Hell yeah. I hope I never feel like I shouldn't be working on
Definitely,
it.
for sure.
Are you getting more confident like every day as a musician?
Oh, for sure, man, because we go through a lot of bullshit, you know what I'm saying? You go through a lot of ups and downs, and your spirit really gets tested, you know what I'm saying? Especially when you have a mission, you get tested, man.
So how long would you say that you've really been taking this seriously?
Depends what you mean by serious.
Like going to the studio, recording with the purpose to put out a project or songs to be heard by the world.
I mean, I guess I've always been doing that since high school, but I became much more aware of how the music world works and what it takes to like have that in like 2012. I used to smoke a lot of weed. That was in my sophomore year. It was like the weakest I've ever been. Like my body, like literally, like the skinniest I've ever been. The most unhealthy. Like my whole, like for 3.5 years at NYU, I slept on my friends' floors and chairs, and I'd fuck girls to sleep in their beds and shit. Like that was literally my life at NYU, because I couldn't be back home because I couldn't focus.
Yeah.
But I remember I used to just spend too much money on like clothes and bud and just like bullshit. And I remember one time I just had like, you play Pokemon before?
Yeah, of course.
You know how like when you go to Pokemon Center and like there's like that light that like goes like when you're getting healed.
Yeah.
I literally just sat on a bed one time and I was like, what the fuck are you doing with your life? And I just felt that happen from like my head down to my feet. And I started, and the next studio session I booked was at the studio I still work at.
Wow. You had total epiphany.
Yeah, just like I guess it was just like this is a low, and you realize it's the low.
So you're thankful for that low because it kind of made you.
Hell yeah, because then it's like, oh shit, I'm down here. What the fuck?
Yeah.
What am I doing in my life?
Easy
You know what you
perspective.
actually care about. Hell yeah, man.
Those moments don't happen at normal operating hours of the day, too. Those moments
Nah,
happen
that
at like
hap-
3 a.m. in the morning.
Yo, because I at NYU, you can't access buildings unless someone who's there
Takes you
swipe.
in, yeah.
And at that point, I remember I was stuck in my friend's room. Nobody was around. His roommates weren't there. All of my friends weren't picking up. I had no bud. I had no money. I just sat on the bed. I was like, what the fuck are you doing with your life? And it was just, it was nice. I'm really appreciative of that shit.
Yeah, for sure.